Defense News. It's proudly sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union. If you're a member of our nation's armed forces, the Department of Defense, or if your family is, we'd be proud to serve you too.
On this episode of Defense News Weekly, we've got a ton of stories coming your way from the show floor of the Association of the United States Army Conference in Washington, D.C. We get an update on the state of the Army from Secretary Christine Wormuth. Plus, the defense manufacturing supply chain is in crisis with the ongoing war in Ukraine. We hear more about it from a top Army official. Plus, we talk personnel with Army Undersecretary Gabe Camarillo. It's those stories and more in the latest news and analysis from the Pentagon to the platoon, here on Defense News Weekly. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. I'm Andrea Scott. This week, the Association of the U.S. Army held its annual conference here in Washington, D.C., where, as always, we interviewed the biggest leaders live from the show floor. First up is Army Secretary Christine Wormuth, who spoke to Defense News' Jen Judson about a range of topics, including barracks reform.
I had a chance to listen to your speech this morning, and was particularly interested in hearing a little bit more about some of the things that you're doing for families, for soldiers, where they're living. I think one of the interesting things that you're working on in terms of barrack reforms is, you're putting out a strategy. You're going to be funding it, I think, at about $4 billion more in barracks maintenance beyond what you were already spending. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what more can you do now if you were to get that $4 billion in extra funding that you couldn't do with the funding that you had. What are some of the things that you're going to be doing to help improve military barracks? What are some of the problems that you're hoping to fix? And do you think it's feasible to get it done by 2030?
So let me clarify, first of all, Jen, the piece I think that came out in the last couple of days that was talking about the permanent barracks strategy, that is what I would call an aspirational strategy.
Okay.
That was not a document that I signed out or that General George signed out. So the good news about it is, we do have a plan mapped out, if you will, for how we could improve our permanent barracks. But a big part of how we would improve our permanent barracks is by getting more money. And right now, $4 billion is more than, frankly, we can afford inside of our current top line. Now, General George and I are, building the FY25 budget request to go to Congress right now. We are looking at and working on trying to put more money from within our top line than we have to date. So, we've been doing $1 billion a year. We'd like to try to increase that a little bit. And then we are also hoping to ensure that our budget request provides for 100% of barracks sustainment, whereas in the past we've only been sustaining up to 85%. So that would be an improvement. To do some of the things that are outlined in that barracks strategy would require yet more funding on top of that. And I think, there's a lot of support on Capitol Hill on both sides of the aisle for improving our barracks. But, I think we're going to have to keep talking to Congress about, what they can accommodate given that they control the power of the purse.
Okay, and beyond barracks, what else are you doing to improve family housing on bases at this point?
Yeah, a couple of things. Well, we continue to work closely with our privatized housing partners. And so, for example, we have broken ground to build more housing at Fort Carson. We are working on completing the land sale at Fort Bliss to be able to help get money to Fort Leonard Wood. And another thing I'm very interested in, although it's early days, is we're looking at doing a pilot for a privatized barracks, actually, at Fort Irwin. That would be, I don't know if you've seen the Pacific Beacon facility that the Navy has out in San Diego, but it is fabulous. It has a rooftop pool. I mean, it's nice. Wow. So we're exploring whether we might be able to do something like that, starting with Fort Irwin.
Thanks, Jen. When we return, we hear about the supply chain from a top Army commander. Welcome back. So what is predictive sustainment? General Charles Hamilton, the Army's head of Materiel Command, explains what this concept means for logistics and how it's been used in Ukraine.
I want to shift gears just a little bit to how you are pursuing what you are calling predictive sustainment and precision logistics. So talk more about what those two things mean and just some of the efforts you have in the works in regards to both of those, how you're going to establish those capabilities.
Okay. In general, they're both data-informed platforms. On the predictive side, think of that more at the strategic level where we're sitting right now. That's going to inform me, Transcom, and other big material suppliers within the Joint Strategic Support where we're sitting right here. At the precision level, that's at the tactical level. That means I got to get the right equipment, the right supplies, because they only have so much lift at that level. Almost like a precision round. I got to be held accountable to get it just right. It's got to land in the right place. If it's off by a little, then it's got consequences.
Right. Okay. So can you talk a little bit how you might be working that into, say, exercises to teach you more about predictive sustainment and how that feeds back into your precision logistics that help you make decisions on what you need logistically, for instance?
So what we're going to do this summer is have a seminar with all the senior material suppliers, myself, Air Force, DLA, Transcom, and we're going to put it in a warfighting context. And we're going to look at the first 30 days of operation of that space. Because you can imagine there's a lot of pieces moving the first 30 days. If you got all the services trying to get to an AR. So we're going to take that and desync it. And that's going to give us an opportunity to do some experimentation and put it in the form of a warfighting exercise.
Okay. All right. Somewhat related, when you're talking about logistics and, how you're dealing with moving things from Fort to Port to Foxhole. We talked a little bit about this before, but in Ukraine, you are using a system that is helping you track how weapons are used in the battlefield, how they're breaking down, when they're breaking down, how much you're using in terms of parts. I mean, it seems fascinating that you're able to kind of track things to that fidelity. So what are you learning from this system in Ukraine that is feeding into, how you think about things when it comes to precision logistics, for instance?
Well, Ukraine gave us the opportunity to build a platform to really get at precision and predictive logistics. And so it's called the Army Materiel Command Predictive Analysis Suite. And within that suite, most of it is classified, but we can see things in real time. And it's given us the ability to get left of parts, left of equipment, and probably more importantly, left of munitions that are going to be needed to sustain this fight. So again, we're moving out, we're taking that platform, and we'll continue to build on that platform so that we can get to true predictive and precision sustainment in the future.
The U.S. Army has reported lower than expected recruiting numbers for fiscal year 2023. To break down the details is Army Times reporter Davis Winke.
I'm Davis Winke, Army Times senior reporter, coming to you from the Association of the U.S. Army's annual show here in Washington, D.C. It's day one of the conference here, and one of the biggest topics here today was the recruiting crisis that the Army has been experiencing for going on 2 years now. And one of the revelations today was that the roots of this crisis went back further. Many people may have known that, but now Army leaders are admitting that fact as they roll out a series of reforms to the service's recruiting enterprise. It was one of the main points of the Army Secretary's remarks today. There was an entire panel discussion where the Army's personnel chief, the Army Recruiting Command chief, and the Chief of Staff all spoke on the topic. The Army is describing recruiting as an existential thing that it needs to address. And more or less, the Army is realigning recruiting command. It's aiming to create a new career field for recruiters to specialize them under human resources career fields. And it's also aiming to change who and how it targets. The service is looking for people who might have decided that college wasn't for them, or who have a 2-year degree and are looking for ways to finance a 4-year degree over the long term. These are new markets for the Army to really be diving into, and the Secretary said that by 2028, she wants 1/3 of the Army's new enlisted recruits to have had at least some post-high school education. We're going to see how that plays out, and we'll keep you informed along the way. Reporting from the AUSA Annual Conference, I'm Davis Winke from Army Times.
And in more from our show floor interviews at AUSA, Defense News reporter Jen Judson spoke with Army Undersecretary Gabe Camarillo about recruitment.
How are you balancing everything that the Army needs to be looking at when you continue to have uncertainty, when you continue to have flat budgets? Are there things that the Army is going to have to take a hard look at in the next couple of years? Modernization, you've done a really good job preserving over the last several budget cycles. It's very important, but obviously things are going to get harder and harder. So, are there any areas where you see the Army being able to find some money to shift within your means so you can continue to meet your priorities?
Yeah.
You've already shifted a lot of funding around, but is there anything left to move?
And we've been pretty clear about what the priorities are. I think, if you look at over the last 2 years, one of the areas that's given us a little bit of flexibility is that as our end strength has come down due to our recruiting challenge, it's provided a little bit of an asset within our budget constraints to be able to preserve investment in things like quality of life in terms of housing for soldiers, as well as maintaining progress on our modernization programs. Obviously our recruiting picture, fortunately, did a lot better at the end of FY23 than the end of FY22, and we are hoping that we continue to improve over the next couple of years. We need to. So I think, there's not a whole lot of other trade space to look at in the Army budget, so we do the best that we possibly can. One thing that we are looking at this next year, you heard General George talk about it at the Eisenhower lunch, it's where we can look at divestment, for example, of some of our legacy systems that create a sustainment cost to the Army. If that can free up some resources for us to invest in modernized capabilities, in quality of life for our soldiers, in housing, then that would be a good thing.
Okay, excellent.
Thanks again, Jen. I see it's been a busy week for you. When we return, we hear the latest tips from our personal finance expert. Welcome back. On this edition of Money Minute, Navy Federal Credit Union personal finance expert Jeanette Mack is back with her latest financial advice to keep your wallet healthy.
October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which means it's the perfect time to brush up on tips that can keep you safe in the digital world. You've heard it before, strong passwords are essential. Always use a combo of uppercase letters, numbers, and special characters. Don't use things like pet names and other easily guessable information. But do add an extra layer of security with two-factor authentication when signing in online. It may be an extra step, but think of it as your online bodyguard for your personal information. And finally, stay informed about the latest threats like phishing, smishing, and vishing. Knowledge really is power when it comes to fighting fraud. Get tips from your bank or credit union and let them know when and if you think you've been targeted. They're your partner in mobile and online banking security and helping you keep your personal info truly personal.
Thanks, Jeanette. We'll see you next week. To get more coverage of military and defense topics, look through your scope at militarytimes.com as well as defensenews.com. And to be the sharpest trooper at the tip of the spear, sign up for our Early Bird Brief newsletter, compiled each morning to bring you the latest headlines. It's also in audio. Check out the podcast version out each weekday wherever you get your podcasts. And if social media is where you get your open source intelligence, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. And stick around. There's more Defense News Weekly after the break. A big challenge in modern warfare is fitting big firepower in smaller packages. Military Times' Todd South found several examples for this report from the show floor of the AUSA conference.
So in recent years, the Army's added new weapon systems and new capabilities to existing platforms. Some of those were remote-operated weapon systems they put on Stryker vehicles and others. Some included lasers to dazzle different types of drones. That's evolving into more and more systems on smaller and smaller packages, everything from robotic systems to light tanks to drones. And one example we're seeing here is a variety of platforms with different types of packages, such as EOS Defense Systems. We talked with their CEO a little bit about what they're doing with those systems in different sizes and different configurations.
The real thing you've got to understand is there's a story behind just about everything we do. And the story here is that drones and anti-tank guided missiles are dominating the battlefield. You can't drive for 10 minutes in Ukraine without somebody taking a shot at you because they can see you and they can react to you. So we've got to come up with something that will overcome that. If you've got a front that's 600 miles long, and that's what the front they're fighting, you've got to be able to move your capability around that battlefield, or you won't be able to overcome the loss of 20% of your land. So what we're trying to do is restore that capability to maneuver. And one of the things we've done is we've certainly put together the R800 so it's a standard direct fire killer. It's got the 30 by 173 Northrop Grumman cannon on it, lovely cannon, Bushmaster, kill out to about 3.5 kilometers, very, very lethal, very accurate, very effective. We've also got the 7.62 coax machine gun, and that machine gun is a standard across many armies in a number of different names. And that machine gun you can take off of a standard arms room, put it onto our system, and we'll kill a drone out at 700-800 meters with 7.62 rounds that cost $1 a piece. And so you can get a $30 kill in literally seconds, simply because our sensor unit is as good as it is and the mount is as good as it is. The third thing we got on here is the Javelin missile. And the Javelin has been so good in Ukraine that they named a saint after it. You go down to downtown Kyiv and there are 6-story buildings with the image painted on the side. It's fantastic. So that missile will kill out to 4 kilometers, and it'll kill just about any armored vehicle on the battlefield. All of that together is a lovely system to counter just about any challenge you've got on the battlefield. But to that, we have added a 1 kilowatt laser. What that gives you the capacity to do is actually 2 things. Where I said the drone was a challenge, it will blind a drone out at a good distance and make that drone unable to see the target they're trying to affect. So they can't bang into you, they can't call artillery on you, they can't affect you. The other thing it will do is if you're firing an anti-tank guided missile at me, I can make that system blink. I can cause it to reset, which takes a long time, and as it's resetting, the missile is flying away. And so all the way around, this is a system we hope will help restore mobility to the battlefield in a very, very difficult time.
And the system is one of a couple different options. You have an R600, R400, different kind of packages and platforms. Can you talk about the versatility of ways you can employ the system altogether and still have some of the same options to kill drones and do other things?
Sure. All of our systems use exactly the same software. So when we innovate to do just about anything, we can put it on our lightest systems or we can put it on our heaviest systems. So if a customer says, I want to kill a drone with a 7.62 on that coax, all of our systems will do that. So the laser is another good example. If I want to blind and I want it on a very light platform, I've got the R150 and it will go on just about anything. And so that commonality, that family approach to being able to offer lethality packages is tremendously important, and it's something that an Army needs. You don't want to buy a solution for every single family or for every single system. What you want to do is you want to upgrade the family once. You only want to pay for it once.
Now, one thing with any kind of system you have, you're going to have different kind of, physics play a role. You know, a platform moves. Even a stationary platform, a mount's going to move after that first round. I see a little antenna thing on the back. I'm understanding this is kind of, I would going to call it a ballistics computer. How would you describe how that works with these different moving systems?
That's actually the Met Station. It's a meteorological station that will allow us to sense the environment around us. Is the wind blowing? Is the temperature very high? Is there a high humidity? All of those sorts of things affect the performance of our weapons. We've got a system that accommodates a number of the characteristics of the platform, of the weapon, of the ammunition, of the environment around them. And so when we optimize our system to be on a particular platform, it's going to fire better than the original manufacturer of that weapon thinks it'll shoot. So we'll go further and we'll hit more accurately.
Now, a lot of people think about the battlefield. Immediately, Ukraine comes to mind. You mentioned that, but also we've had recently seen strikes, in Israel. This has different applications beyond an offensive operation or even a defensive kind of state-on-state engagement. You could use this for other types of protection as well, correct?
Absolutely. If you're trying to counteract the effects of drones, but you cannot afford to put a kinetic effect out there, being able to blind them, being able to disable them, being able to even put them into reset, any of those things will render them ineffective. And the more you can deny them the ability to see, the more effect you're going to have on countering their capacity to cause you problems. And so that's the kind of thing we're looking to achieve.
A big thing with any time of drone work is, you can't hit it if you don't track it. So EOS has a bit of an origin story. I mean, they started with a little bit bigger picture kind of tracking. Could you talk a little about kind of some of the history of EOS with tracking?
Certainly. EOS is an Australian company, and they started tracking things in space with lasers. And about 45 years ago, everybody said, no, we're going to radar. EOS, being pig-headed, said, we're staying with lasers. And so we track things at great depth in space. We can track a dime at 34,000 kilometers in space. That capacity translates, understanding how to accommodate vibration, understanding how to dampen out weather effects, deal with the environment, that sort of thing. We can handle those. We've been doing it for almost 50 years, and we do it very, very well. We do it very, very accurately. In the beginning of RWSs, most people were shooting very inaccurate weapons, and they were looking for an effect, an area effect, so they wanted to suppress. We're now buying weapons, and we're able to develop weapons that are much, much more accurate. And if you don't have a precise remote weapon station, no matter what you do, no matter how good your weapon is, you're not going to hit the targets you need to hit. We will very often hit targets at twice the range of our competitors, just because we've got so many ways of mitigating error, and we've got so much experience building the necessary software to allow us to accommodate effects in the real world.
So last question, but maybe the most important, for the soldiers out there, for a company battalion, brigade, or battery commander, if they have something like this in their inventory, in their arsenal, what does that change for their TTPs, their ways of doing business on the battlefield?
It probably affects them in a couple of ways. The first is you get an RWS, you put it on a vehicle, you're going to shoot it 0.1% of the time you own it. The rest of the time you're going to be looking through it as an ISR capability. We have a sensor package that is tremendously capable. It's very, very well integrated, and it gives them the capacity to see an armored vehicle, for an example, at about 12.5 kilometers. You're going to get that early warning that you need. The second thing we're going to deliver is precision. So if I'm in a situation where I positively have to shoot, I don't want to shoot a long time. I don't want to get in this long, I just want to kill what I'm shooting at, and I want to move to my next spot. This will let them do that, and it does it beautifully, and it does it very effectively. So whether I'm trying to kill a UAV or a tank or whatever I'm trying to do, this will do it, and it will do it fast. It'll do it with less ammo, it'll do it with less power, and it'll do it with less time.
A fairly prominent version of this packing more weapon systems onto one platform was at the General Dynamics Land Systems booth, which showed its MOOG or Moog system, kind of almost like a light tank with a whole lot of weapon systems and its own drone to launch. And getting more weapons and more capabilities into a platform is not limited to robotic vehicles or crewed tanks or strikers. Even places like Elbit Systems is putting it together on its Sky Striker drone, loading it up with missiles, other capabilities. So that drone can do some of the same things that remote operating weapon systems can do, giving people a chance to see the battlefield and strike where needed. That's just one theme we're seeing emerge here at this year's AUSA show, getting more weapon systems and capabilities on smaller platforms in a variety of ways. This has been Todd South with Army Times reporting from AUSA.
And unfortunately, that's all we have time for in this episode. Thanks for watching, and we'll bring you more military news next week.